WOR-TV is proud to present its 26th consecutive year of New York Mets Championship Baseball. Mets Baseball 87, brought to you by Busch Beer, the beer with a taste as smooth as its name. By Manufacturers Hanover, the financial source worldwide. By Nissan, who invites you to test drive the Go Anywhere Pathfinder at your Nissan dealer. By RC Cola. Some people go out of their way for the taste of RC. By Oppenheimer Mutual Funds. We take the frustration out of investing. By American Express. And by Mita Copiers. Live from Al Lang Stadium in St. Petersburg, Florida, WOR-TV presents New York Mets preseason baseball as tonight, the Mets take on the Chicago White Sox. Pitching for the White Sox tonight, left-hander Floyd Bannister, who last year was 10-14 with an ERA of 3.54. And on the mound for the Mets tonight, right-hander Rick Anderson, who was 7-2 at Tidewater and 2-1 with the New York Mets last season and an ERA of 2.68.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Kiner, along with Tim McCarver and Steve Zabriskie. And as you probably know, in doing our games and watching our games on WOR-TV, another exciting season is underway, and the Mets will have 75 games in the regular season right here in WOR. And we will be bringing you a total of 7 games in spring training. And this ball game, another of our spring training ball games, and it's with the Chicago White Sox. You also probably know that Tim McCarver is never without a jacket when he comes on this show. I'd like to know what happened to your jacket.
You're not going to believe this, but I locked my keys in the car, and that's why I don't have my jacket. And I've not only that, all of my notes, those hours that we spent studying the Chicago
in those
White
libraries.
Sox, that's exactly right. The museums and libraries, they're also in the car, as are, of course, my keys.
And speaking of a fellow that's in another place on the Chicago White Sox, the Hawk. That's Harrelson, the man who was the general manager of the Chicago White Sox, is no longer running the ball club. He retired after a very short season last year, and now is back, or he is back, I guess, to some degree, looking for some work in broadcasting.
And the White Sox really, under the Hawk, didn't fare too well. He was their general manager for a year. The White Sox really haven't fared too well since 1983. They did win the division that year, but Tito Landrum's 2-run homer off Britt Burns spelled defeat for the White Sox, and they've really never recovered from that year. And of course, before that, I guess the 1959 Go-Go White Sox was their last really share in glory.
So it's the Mets and the Chicago White Sox tonight. Let's go to Steve Zabriskie.
Thanks, Ralph, and hi, everybody. Well, the main topic of discussion off the field continues to be the free agent situation, and Players Association Executive Director Don Fehr, making his usual spring training rounds, visited the New York Mets camp today, and obviously that was a big topic of discussion, the remaining players still out and unsigned. We talked with one of the Mets player representatives, Keith Hernandez, about what transpired at the meeting today.
Well, I think obviously the main topic of discussion was the collusion, owners colluding, and this is the current plight of some superstar free agents that have been tendered no contracts, and it's just been bogus and arbitration and other basic stuff that's union matters. But the main focus was the future and what's happening now and how it's going to affect the future and the up-and-coming negotiations in 1990.
As player representative, what do you see your role and how you stand in all of this? Because you've obviously got a couple of hats to wear.
Well, Carter and myself, and I think Lee is one of the older guys, is we've been through some, we're one of the few that have been through past negotiations where there was no arbitration and you had to wait 6 full seasons before you had a chance to any kind of leverage for negotiation. So we got to realize now we got a whole new generation, and that came in with when money was good, still is good, and I think if anything that I've seen, I've never seen a meeting with players more attentive. It was 100% undivided attention to Don, because I think the young players have been directly affected by what's happened with the way the owners are trying to drive salaries down. I'm not going to get into a debate about whether it's right or wrong, but it's directly affected the people now. And if anything, I think it's going to be a positive effect for our union as a whole, because we'll be more united. When it affects everybody, you tend to to circle the wagons, so to speak. So what I see from it now is more unity. Like I said, I've never seen so much intent listening to what Don, or in the past Marvin, had to say. I mean, everybody was all ears.
And with that increased unity, obviously it does not bode well for negotiations in 1990 when there could be another players' strike. And we'll be back with the start of the ball game between the Mets and the White Sox right after this for Busch Beer.
Well, it's the New York Mets against the Chicago White Sox. They have met one time previously in the spring training season, and the Mets have won that ball game. And here today, it'll be Rick Anderson on the mound. Rick was pressed into service as a starting pitcher when Ron Darling and his wife Tony had a baby, and Ron not able to take his turn in regular rotation here tonight. I'd like to remind you this copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the New York Mets and WRTV, and is intended solely for the private, non-commercial use of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, retransmission, or other use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of the New York Mets and WRTV is prohibited. So while we have a slight delay here, we'd like to use the opportunity to tell you about Canada Tourism. Well, the Mets come into this ball game with a record of 7-5. They lost their first 3 games this year, then had a 4-game winning streak, and right now working on a 3-game winning streak. The White Sox have a record this spring of 5 wins and 8 losses, and they have tied 1 game. And as we mentioned on the opening of the show, the White Sox trying to regroup, so to speak. White Sox last year with a record of 72-90 finished 5th, 20 games out of first place behind the California Angels. And, of course, they have a new general manager, and they also have a new manager making a managerial switch in the middle of the season last year, and former Met Jim Fregosi now running the ball club.
He came up from the Louisville Cardinals, the AAA affiliate of the Cardinals, and Jim back in the big leagues. He was the manager when the 1979 California Angels went to the playoffs, and they lost to Baltimore that year, and Baltimore eventually lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates in the World Series in 7 games. Larry Himes, the new general manager of the White Sox, and kind of looks like Chicago, doesn't, on the way to Wrigley Field.
Going up Michigan Avenue there in the Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah.
Looking out, of course, the temperature might be just a little different.
Interesting also, Ralph, we had a chance, as we are delayed here a bit this evening. Game time was scheduled for 7:35, a bit of a delay here at Al Lang Field, but we did have a chance to talk to Eddie Einhorn, and Eddie informing us that the new ballpark in Chicago should be ready by 1990. Interesting situation there, huh?
They're building the ballpark right next to the old park, Comiskey Park, and they're using an area right there that has been used before.
I thought Eddie, of course, is one of the owners, one of the majority owners of the Chicago White Sox, along with Jerry Reinsdorf. And Eddie was telling us that we mentioned Hawk Harrelson, Ken Harrelson. He said that had the situation been different last year, had the club not been confronted with the prospect of moving to a new ballpark and had all those problems, that Hawk probably could have concentrated more on the ball club and possibly salvaged his job. I thought that was an interesting comment coming from Eddie Einhorn.
No, the politics certainly were heavy and still are, because there's opposition to the fact that they are going to build a ballpark, although it has been voted that the park will be built and they should be able to play there in 1990. Incidentally, Daniel Evans, who's an assistant to Larry Himes, would like to pass on and get well to Art Burke, recovering from surgery, and we might do that while we have this slight delay.
And also Dave Magadan, who is at Roosevelt Hospital in New York, and no doubt watching the broadcast tonight. Dave had 102 temperature last night. He has a swollen lymph gland under his right arm, and he is at Roosevelt Hospital in New York. Rushed there today. We hope it's nothing serious, and we hope a speedy recovery to Dave Magadan, who wants to get back in action and battle Howard Johnson for that third base position.
And Howard Johnson tonight playing shortstop, and that is something you might see a lot of as the Mets start the season with left-hand pitching on the mound. The Mets are playing Johnson at shortstop, but also playing Backman in the situation. Mets also have cut their squad to 33 today. They've reassigned Doby, McCarthy, Mitchell, Olson, Miller, Bautista, West, Sanchez, and Lawton and Givens, and so the Mets now making their first cuts, and they are down to 33. They will have to get down to 24 when the season starts.
And talking to Davey Johnson, it's not the younger players that is really a problem in cutting, but it's the older players. The younger players realize that they're going to have a chance to come up and be in the big leagues someday for the most part, especially if they're prospects. And the older players, however, the guys, a guy like Clint Hurdle, for instance, who's back with the Mets on his second tour of duty, trying to make the ball club. It would be tough if the Mets decide to send Clint down to Tidewater, and those are the prospects right now. And of course, Clint knew that when he signed with the Mets once more.
And incidentally, Hurdle, with a great sense of humor, he was with the Mets 2 years ago when they finished second to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals won. Then he went over to the Cardinals and played for them last year, and the Cardinals finished second, and the Mets won. So he's now back with the Mets, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not he'll be able to hang on and stay with the ball club. Still a delay here in St. Petersburg, so here's a word from Manufacturers Hanover. Well, our delay here at Al Lang Stadium in St. Petersburg, one of the fans in the stands having a heart attack, and now the medics have arrived and they are over there attending to this person, and it appears that everything has been restored to somewhat of an order because of some of the fans in the stands applying CPR.
Yeah, really quite a story that before the doctors could arrive, several fans took it upon themselves to give CPR to the gentleman in question, and the Bayfront medical helicopter arrived, swooped down on the infield, and the gentleman will be escorted to the hospital.
And that is a reason for our delay here at Al Lang Stadium, a capacity crowd on hand. And the helicopter arriving over the right field fence and landing there just prior to our coming back on the air after commercial. Very serious situation here at Al Lang Stadium.
You know, it's interesting, Ralph. You can almost feel the seriousness and the concern, obviously, from all the fans here looking over the Mets dugout. The gentleman was put on top of the dugout, given CPR, and now, as we said, he is put on a stretcher and he'll be carted out. The game should be underway shortly. Fine job by the Bayfront Medical Hospital crew. Just a short distance from here. The Mets' last spring training here in St. Petersburg. They moved to Port St. Lucie next year, and we understand the construction of that magnificent facility is underway and going along quite smoothly.
And the stadium will look very much like the one right here, and the complex will be built. And the overall master plan for golf courses, schools, hospitals.
It is really supposed to be something.
It is going to be a tremendous development in time, and the Mets will open up spring training there next year. So while we are waiting, here's a word from your Ford dealer. Well, the medical helicopter out in the infield, and we're standing by as one of the fans suffering a heart attack and being administered to now by the medical corps. And this game now delayed because of that accident.
Mets in good shape. They are all working very hard. They've played good ball after the first 3 ball games. As Ralph said, they lost their first 3 games in a row. And since that time, they have won 7 of 9.
Last year, the Mets had a record of 13 wins, 13 losses, and 1 tie, playing a total of 27 ball games. And so far, the Mets have not lost a ball game to the weather, and the weather has not been that good. It rained hard last night, and this morning the field was very wet. But here tonight, it has been worked on and is in good shape.
See that helicopter out on the field, and of course this is no time for jokes as that gentleman is being carried to the helicopter, but it does remind me of a story back in 1965 when the Minnesota Twins were playing the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series, and up in Bloomington, the stadium up there, Calvin Griffith, the owner, and the stadium very wet for about 3 days, and somebody suggested to Calvin that what you ought to do is bring in a jet engine here to dry off the infield. And Calvin said, "You'd never land a plane in this park."
And he said it seriously,
yeah,
too.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have seen a plane landed in this park tonight, of course, a helicopter. Some of the Mets players helping the stretcher victim. There's the gentleman.
So a heart attack victim being taken out of the stance and very shortly placed into the helicopter. Very sobering effect.
Yeah, it surely is. Darryl Strawberry there. Ed Hearn.
As we mentioned, the White Sox last year with a record of 72-90, they get off to a fairly good start. And then in the second half of the season, just about disintegrated and ended up with a record of 72-90 and were 20 games out in 5th place.
Ralph, some interesting comments in the paper, in the St. Petersburg paper today, about the Chicago White Sox ball club. Several of the older players, Greg Walker, Floyd Bannister, Carlton Fisk was also mentioned, rather critical of the White Sox management for not making an attempt to sign Tim Raines, saying that they made only one trade over the wintertime. That was to acquire Donnie Hill from the Oakland A's. Donnie Hill starting in tonight's ball game at second base. But I thought that was an interesting thing to see that some of the White Sox players very critical of management there in Chicago about the Tim Raines situation.
Well, when you think of the money that Tim Raines is asking, and he turned down $1.6 million for several years, a period of that time, that's a ballpark figure. And if you did put out that kind of money on a long-term contract, and it did not assure you of drawing a lot of people or being in the pennant race, you might have to consider that as an investment you might not want to make. And obviously, that's the way most of these clubs look at it. Raines, of course, has been talking with the San Diego Padres, and I believe those negotiations have broken off at this time.
Yeah, and the San Diego populace there in Southern California not really happy about that. For the most part, a lot of the fans calling up were very critical of Padre management. There's no question that the addition of Tim Raines would make a borderline team a contender overnight. He is that type of offensive player. He is a dominant force offensively. Some free agents in the past that have been signed that have responded immediately. Pete Rose, for instance. Pete Rose signed with the Phillies in 1979 and immediately justified them paying him the $800,000 that he requested. Actually, he was to receive more money from other ball clubs. They upped their season total in tickets to 5,000 seats immediately, which easily paid his salary and more.
All those have to be regarded as factors when you consider signing a player of Tim Raines' stature. He's rumored to be talking to the Houston Astros right now and also to the Atlanta Braves. And the Montreal Expos, of course, have lost Andre Dawson. They traded away Jeff Reardon. And Of course, you have a situation there where their ball club has been changed considerably.
It's interesting that he's talking to both Houston and Atlanta, as Steve Zabriskie reminded us. The reason I say that is I don't think he's going to make a contender out of Atlanta. You put him on the Atlanta ball club, and I don't think they're going to be a contender. You put him on the Houston ball club, and I'll guarantee you that's going to make a good ball club, possibly a great ball club, and even more of a contender than they already are.
Of course, Raines led the league in hitting last year, and he also is one of the great base stealers of all time. He has the best base stealing percentage of any player that ever played for any length of time in the major leagues. Well, Rick Anderson taking his warm-up pitches, and right now, here's a word from the good Olds guys. Well, Rick Anderson on the mound for the Mets. Rick with a record of 2-1 for the New York Mets last year. An earned run average of 2.72. He also was at Tidewater, where he won 7 and lost 2. Anderson with the Mets was in 15 games, 5 of them as a starting pitcher, worked 49 2/3 innings, gave up 45 hits, walking 11 and striking out 21. Rick Anderson.
And the lineup for the Chicago White Sox. Shortstop Ozzie Guillen will be batting first. As we mentioned, Donnie Hill, acquired from the Oakland A's over the offseason. He's the second baseman. He'll be batting second. What a fine ball player Harold Baines is. He's the right fielder batting third. Greg Walker, the power-hitting first baseman, hitting fourth. Ivan Calderon, the left fielder, batting fifth. He is supposed to start the season for the White Sox in left field. Tim Hewlett, the third baseman, batting sixth. Ken Williams, the center fielder, hitting seventh. Ron Karkovice, the catcher, batting eighth. And Floyd Bannister on the mound, hitting ninth. I'm anxious to see young Ron Karkovice. Played in Birmingham last year. And he was the catcher when Steve Carlton won his first American League game. Victory number, I believe it was 220, and it was Karkovice's first major league game. 320, yeah, 320, pardon.
So now the Mets are taking the field as you take a look at the starting pitcher for the White Sox, Floyd Bannister, with a record of 10 and 14. In the outfield for the Mets, we have Kevin McReynolds in left field. In center field, Mookie Wilson and Darryl Strawberry in right. The catcher will be Gary Carter, and Rick Anderson, the pitcher. Rick won his first ball game for the Mets in a rather unusual way. It took 2 days for him to win it. It was a suspended game in Chicago. Second game of a doubleheader called because of darkness. And the Mets the next day picked up the suspended game and went on to win it. And he got his first major league win. That was back on August the 10th.
If you remember, the first time Anderson came up, he was scheduled to pitch against the San Diego Padres, and it rained, and he had to be sent back. Here he is, his first chance for a major league start. It rained, he was sent back, but there were new days ahead.
That was after 7 years pitching part or all of a season for Tidewater in the International League. Ozzie Guillen will be the leadoff batter. Guillen, a .250 hitter last year with 2 home runs, 47 RBIs. So far this spring, hitting .435. He has 10 hits and 23 at-bats. And the first pitch of the game, right back to the middle, cut off by Howard Johnson to throw in time for the out. 1 pitch and 1 away, and a good play. That'll bring up Donnie Hill. Hill at Oakland hit .283 last season with 4 home runs, 29 runs batted in. He is a 3-year veteran. And so far this spring, hitting .320 with 8 hits and 25 at-bats.
Donnie Hill's an interesting story. He's ambidextrous, Ralph, and he does the best impression of pitchers. And the best ones is Tommy John. Think about that now. He's a right-handed thrower, and he does impressions of left-handed pitchers. Got to be ambidextrous to do that, don't you?
Yeah, he's in the right side of his brain.
Right. Is that Bill Lee line?
Bill Lee said the only people in their right minds are left-handed pitchers or left-handers. Because the right side controls the left side. from Everett, Washington. He was the Mets' 23rd selection in the June 1978 draft. On deck batter, Harold Baines. 3-1. Talking about the spaceman Bill Lee, I read a thing about him the other day where he went on a banana diet. Someone said, well, why are you eating all those bananas? He said, well, you never saw an ape have a cramp. There's a fly ball to deep center. Tough play for Mookie, and he can't get to it. So Donnie Hill pulls into second base with a 2-base hit.
Donnie Hill does not have a lot of power. Had only 4 home runs last year, but he did have a good year. But he shows a little power here as he sends Wilson deep. And it short hops the fence, and he's got an easy double. Wind didn't help that ball, did it?
No, it didn't. There is very little wind here tonight, and it puts a runner in scoring position with 1 out and brings up the dangerous Harold Baines. Baines hit .296 last year with 21 home runs and 88 runs batted in. And the slider hit on the ground, fielded by Backman. The throw to Hernandez for the out, and Hill goes over to third. So 2 men away as Anderson gets started in this ball game, and it brings up Greg Walker. Walker hit .277 last season for the White Sox, and he had a year where he was injured twice. Walker so far this spring hitting .258 for 32. And a slider grounded foul.
Ralph, before I locked my keys in the car tonight, I was thinking about the Greg Walker and the acquisition from the Major League Draft of the Philadelphia Phillies in 1979. Now check this. In 1980, the Toronto Blue Jays drafted George Bell.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Hello? 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 Go ahead and give it to him.
As he looked like he was favoring that left knee, and he went down on the right knee. But watch how Donnie Hill gets the jump. Boom, he's gone right away. Had he hesitated, then fear may have been involved as far as going in, but he broke right away and really stole a run for the White Sox.
Well, the strikeout ends the inning. 1 run on the wild pitch after the double. And the score at the end of 1/2 inning, the White Sox won. The Mets coming up. Now, here's a word from Oldsmobile. Floyd Bannister on the mound for the White Sox. 10-14 last year with a 3.54 ERA. Worked 165 innings, gave up 162 hits. Walked only 48 while striking out 92.
And the lineup for the Mets, Mookie Wilson leading off and playing center. Second baseman Wally Backman batting second. Keith Hernandez, the first baseman, hitting third. Gary Carter behind the plate and batting fourth. Right fielder Darryl Strawberry hitting fifth. Left fielder Kevin McReynolds, newly acquired, of course, from San Diego, batting sixth. Third baseman, or make that shortstop, Howard Johnson hitting seventh. Third baseman Al Pedrique batting eighth, and pitcher Rick Anderson batting ninth. Ralph, we were talking about Gary Carter and why it was not a good block of the slider thrown by Anderson. Watch how Carter brings down only his right knee, not the left one. See, a catcher tries to square up his body to keep the ball out in front of him, but by putting down only one knee, that kind of makes that chest protector a little harder and allows the ball to carry him off of it.
And that's the difference in the ball game as the White Sox scored a run on the wild pitch. And Mookie Wilson bats for the first time. Mookie hitting .289 last year. This one sliced off to the right. Mookie so far this spring hitting .385. And we'd like to apologize for our transmission. I understand it's not too good right now, and we certainly are working on it to give you a better picture. And again, a foul ball to the right side, 1-2. Mookie with 10 hits and 26 at-bats so far this spring. And one of the few times that Mookie has not thought about a starting job with the Mets. Mets outfield set with Strawberry, Dykstra, and McReynolds. Mookie will be used in and out. Fastball foul back. He's having a good spring. One thing about Mookie, he'll give you a battle.
He certainly will.
And again, a foul ball. All those foul balls right there should bring back memories of the sixth game of the World Series, because it was Mookie with a count of 2-2 that fouled off pitches. Then a wild pitch scored the tying run for the Mets, and then he grounded the ball to first base after some more foul balls, and it went through Buckner's legs, and the Mets won that sixth ball game. Out to third base, and Donnie Hill over to first for the out. So one away. White Sox leading 1-0, and Wally Backman the batter. Wally having his best year ever in the major leagues last season, hitting .320. 1 home run, 27 RBIs, and he is playing even though he is not considered to be a good hitter from the right-hand side of the plate. Davey Johnson giving Wally a chance to use the bat from his weaker side. And the fastball by Bannister, strike call. Again, the fastball, strike two. Wally hitting .238 this spring with 5 hits and 21 at-bats. Back again and just missing. 3 fastballs in a row, and the count 1-2. Bannister was drafted #1 in the nation by Houston back in 1976.
Right off the campus of Arizona State.
Ground ball to the shortstop, Ozzie Guillen. And the lob throw for the out. Ozzie Guillen, acquired from the San Diego Padres. And Bannister now with 2 men away. And his batter will be Keith Hernandez. Keith batted .310 last year with 13 home runs, 83 runs batted in. White Sox leading 1-0. Scoring in the top of the first inning. And the fastball for ball 1. Keith hitting .286 this spring with 6 hits and 21 at-bats. Fastball. 1 ball, 1 strike. Heath with a lifetime batting average of .302 in the major leagues. And the ground ball, Guion charging. Nice play. So the Mets go in order, and the score at the end of one. The White Sox won, the Mets nothing. Now here's a word from the Oppenheimer Mutual Funds. Ivan Calderon will lead it off for the White Sox. White Sox leading by a score of 1-0. We're in the top of the second. Ivan hitting .303 last year in 13 ball games for the White Sox, making a move through the organization right up to the major leagues. So far this spring, he's hitting .300. And a good slider by Rick Anderson. Calderon with 9 hits and 30 at-bats. Good young prospect. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Matter of fact, Ivan was the player to be named later when the White Sox sent Scott Bradley to the Seattle Mariners. Scott Bradley, if you'll remember, formerly with the Yankee organization as a catcher.
Pop up to the second base side, and Backman puts it away. So Calderon pops up to second base, 1 out, top of the second. White Sox leading 1-0, and the batter will be Tim Hewlett. Tim last year hit .231 with 17 home runs and 44 runs batted in. And Anderson right on the outside corner with a fastball. Anderson was brought up to pitch 1 game for the Mets. And he left that ball game after 7 innings, leading 2-1 in a magnificent pitching performance. Mets later on lost that ball game, so he got an ND. Hewlett hitting .208, 5 for 24 this spring for the White Sox. And again, right on that outside corner, and Rick Anderson has his second strikeout.
After a couple of sliders, you see Gary Carter sitting outside, and you see how that little tail on the end brings the ball back over the outside corner of the plate. That's a good tailing fastball by Rick Anderson.
And it brings up Ken Williams. Williams in 15 ball games with the White Sox batted .129. He had 1 run batted in, and it came on a home run. Fastball, and the count 1 ball, 1 strike to Ken Williams.
Now that's the slider that's outside, and you could see that that was going to the left as you're looking at it on your screen. But the fastball, easy to distinguish from Anderson because of the tail on it. And there it was.
2-2. Anderson, a master of perseverance. He almost got a strike call from home plate umpire Dave Pallone.
They ought to play that over. You know, it still should be 2-2. Watch the umpire, Dave Pallone. Now, see, he wants to bring... Whoa!
And ball 4. So Anderson walks his first batter, comes but 2 men out. White Sox leading 1-0. Top of the second inning, and the batter will be Ron Karkovice. Karkovice hit .247 with 4 home runs, 13 runs batted in for the White Sox. They're already talking about his arm. Runner goes, the throw by Carter, not in time. So Ken Williams picks up a stolen base.
Well, Gary Carter does all he can on this throw. He gets rid of the ball quickly. It's a little high, but a good jump by Ken Williams. If you remember last year at the beginning of the year, Carter had a tough time throwing the ball, but not so this year because his left knee is in better shape. And I know that sounds funny, but those legs try to do something different with him, you get a sore arm. And I think he had a sore shoulder when he broke camp last year.
He did throw well the second half of the season. Back with a fastball in the count, 2-1. Carter's been known for a good throwing arm throughout his career. And a strike call. That ball looked like it might have been outside. Got a good call from home plate umpire Dave Pallone. 2-2 the count. On deck batter Floyd Bannister. Of course, we're playing in a National League ballpark, so the pitcher will be hitting in this ball game as they're using National League rules. No DH. My memory serves me correctly, Tim. Bannister's a good hitter.
Yeah, yeah.
Pitched for
And
Houston.
had a lot of practice, so that's the only thing.
And he went from Houston to Seattle, now with the White Sox. Full count, 3-2. Pitcher on deck. To the slider and missed. And ball 4. So runners now at first and second on 2 walks. Both on 3-2 pitches, and it brings up Floyd Bannister. White Sox leading 1-0. Runners at first and second. We're in the top of the second. Ground ball right at Wally Backman. And that'll do it. 2 walks and 2 left to score at the end of 1.5. The White Sox won, the Mets nothing. Now here's a word from Pepsi-Cola. Bottom half of the second, the White Sox leading 1-0. And for the Mets, it'll be Gary Carter to lead off. Carter hit .255 last year for the Mets with 24 home runs and 105 RBIs. 105 RBIs, tying a Met record set by Rusty Staub. And now for the play-by-play, a man who was always good at the plate, Tim McCarver.
All right, Ralph, thanks a lot. Gary batting .300.
That's a dinner plate we're talking about. No, you know.
I enjoyed the dinner plate. No, I know.
Well, you're major league there.
Yes, sir. However, I've been on a little diet the last couple of months. Shed a few pounds. You have to do that.
Good shape. Came into spring training in good shape. I like that attitude.
I used to, it's funny, as it's 1-1 on Carter, I used to gain weight during the off season, lose it during the season. Now it's just the opposite.
Work habits have changed considerably.
2-1 to Carter. 1-0 White Sox, bottom of the second inning. And it's 3-1 to Gary.
You know, Tim, I used to be the other way around. I used to try to come to spring training heavy because in the season I'd lose weight. I couldn't keep the weight on, and I didn't want to get down too low for August and September.
Well, I didn't try to, but I did a lot of times. Of course, as it's 3-2 to Carter, 25 years ago and in past years from that time, it was fashionable to come to spring training heavy because spring training was exactly that. And I think for the betterment of the game and the players who play it, they are coming in better shape now and using the off season to work out. It's almost an 11-month out of the year game now. Still 3-2 to Carter.
Babe Ruth would go to Hot Springs, Arkansas prior to spring training for the hot baths there to get in shape.
Ripped down the left field line, and it's a fair ball. Carter's going to have to hurry. Calderon throws well, and it's overthrown at second, and Carter's going to get there anyway. A wild throw by Calderon as Donnie Hill probably thought he had a play on Carter. It's where your infielders can really help each other out, huh?
He should be helped out by the first baseman, pitcher, or someone close by. Good play in left field by Calderon as he cuts this ball off. Carter makes a big turn, gets halfway to second and stops. And with the throw being a tough one to handle by the second baseman, Donnie Hill. He gets away, and Carter will go down to second base on the air. There really should go to the left fielder.
Yeah, that's the type of play that should not happen in the major leagues.
All should have been blocked.
That's right. Darryl Strawberry, the batter. There are so many ways for that error not to happen. First baseman Greg Walker could have backed up the play to prevent it from happening. The shortstop Guillen should have told Hill something. Carter's not coming, block it, whatever. But anyway, it's a throwing error on Calderon, and it should not have happened. 2-0 to Strawberry. Practice like you play, right?
Have to do that.
Darryl batting .208 on the spring. He does have 1 home run, 4 RBIs.
This has been a good...
just catches a corner. Pardon me,
I
Ralph.
was going to say, this has been a good spring for Darryl, and you might ask why. And the reason why I say that is that he's had to face a lot of left-hand pitching. And that's good. The more you see, the better it is.
Breaking ball grounded to second base. In the process of making an out, however, Carter moves to third. And he's there with 1 out.
If there are such things as good outs, that was at least on the plus side as a run, move the runner over to third where he can score on other ways besides errors and hits.
That's so true. There are a lot of things you can do when you make an out. You can produce a run, and Darryl Strawberry is about 2/3 of the way there with Carter at third. Kevin McReynolds batting 174 on the spring. A good cut, but he came up empty. 0-1. Yeah, the Mets have faced a lot of left-handers this spring. You neutralize Hernandez by throwing lefties at New York. Also Strawberry, also Backman, also Johnson. Backman and Johnson, much more proficient hitters from the left side.
And this man at the plate right here is supposed to be the man that will stop that.
Ray Knight did it last year. Knight now a Baltimore Oriole. Fouls it back. So McReynolds in the hole, 1-2. Carter on third and 1 out. The Mets trailing by a run.
Reynolds drove in 96 runs last year for San Diego, had 26 home runs, while hitting .288. And he raised his batting average pretty close to 75 points with that .288 from the year before.
He has had some good cuts. Walker over, Karkovice the catcher over, and Walker makes the catch. So McReynolds fails to drive in Carter from third. There are now 2 outs, and the batter will be Howard Johnson.
Howard's had a good spring. He had a 4-for-4 day against Toronto. Overall hitting to .320 this spring with 8 base hits. And he leads the club in home runs with 2. He and Lee Mazzilli.
If you watch Monday night's game here on WOR, you saw Howard Johnson hit a tremendous home run from the right side. Fastball is low. 1-0 to Howard Johnson. Tim McCarver along with Ralph Kiner and Steve Zabriskie once again apologizing for the delay in tonight's ball game. Gentleman had a heart attack over the Mets dugout. The helicopter was flown in, and he was shuttled off to the Bayfront Medical Center, and we hope he's all right. Hit well to left center, but not well enough. Ken Williams, the center fielder, over, and he makes the catch. No runs, a hit, 1 error, and 1 left here in the second after 2, 1-0 Chicago, and we'll be back after this word from American Express. Ozzie Guillen leads it off against Rick Anderson and the Mets here in the top of the 3rd inning. Ozzie grounded to short his first time up. And a bunt attempt is foul. Gary trying to keep his feet in and stretch with the glove, huh? Those catchers, you can't trust them.
They'll do anything. They really will. But you know what confuses me? There you see White Sox, okay?
Uh-huh.
Look at his socks.
They're not white.
They are not white.
Huh.
The White Sox have gone to Red Sox this year.
I guess Boston's wearing White Sox.
I guess they'd have to now.
Whacked foul. So it's 0-2 to Ozzie Guillen. It is very strange.
Chicago White Sox known by that name for years and years and years, and now no longer wearing White Sox.
Affectionately known as the Pale Hose. Chicago's south side, where that Leroy Brown hangs out, right? 1-2 to Guillen. Mel Stottlemyre in the middle, flanked by Roger McDowell, who will enter tonight's ball game, and of course manager Davy Johnson to Mel's right. Grounded towards second. High hop for Backman. 1 out. 1-0 Chicago, and that'll bring up Donnie Hill. Hill doubled in the first inning, went to third base on a ground out, and then came home on a very alert play. A rather short, wild pitch. Got a good jump, scored the only run of the game. Donnie Hill. Fouls one off his foot. 0-1 to Donnie Hill. A boyish grin, huh?
And he throws just as well left-handed as right.
He is ambidextrous, correct. Fastball low, 1-1. Hill had a good year last year for the Oakland A's. Came to the White Sox for 2 pitchers. Bruce Tanner and the ex-Yankee and Seattle Mariner Gene Nelson went to Oakland. A lot of people think Oakland's got a shot at that Western Division of the American League this year, Ralph.
Well, of course, they have Reggie Jackson, and that generates interest, although Reggie's coming to the end of the line.
Mm-hmm. Carney Lansford, fine third baseman. Alfredo Griffin. Joaquin Andujar, and of course the rookie sensation, rookie of the year last year, Jose Canseco. 2-2 to Hill.
And the ever-popular Dave Kingman.
Yeah, Dave, I guess they released Dave, didn't they?
I didn't see that if they did.
I believe they did. Either
Is he
they
looking for a job?
I think he is. Either they released him or he declared free agency and nobody picked him up as Hill goes down on strikes. Third strikeout for Rick Anderson. We've got our red book here. We'll check the red.
Right here, Anderson picks up his third strikeout with that fastball. And Donnie Hill behind the fastball, making no contact. Of course, the Oakland Athletics do have Ron Say now.
I think that's what they did. They've gotten Jackson and Say to DH a left-right punch that they've really supplanted for the Dave Kingman situation. Harold Baines, who grounded to second his first time up, swings and misses. 1-1. Two outs, 1-0 Chicago. Held up, 2-1 to Baines.
Dave Kingman with 16 Grand Slam home runs in his major league career. That's, of course, more than any active player through last season.
Kong could hit him a long way. Ground ball toward first. Nice play, Hernandez to Anderson covering. An easy inning for Rick, as the White Sox go in order here in the third, but after 2.5 have a 1-0 lead. We'll be back after this word from British Airways.
On April 7th, the battle for the pennant begins at Shea Stadium, and we're ready. We've got the big guns. We've got the heavy artillery. And we've got the best manpower support in the game. You helped us get this. Now come out and help us keep it. Let's do it again. 1986 champs. Baseball like it ought to be.
Well, join the Mets as they celebrate opening day 2, Thursday afternoon, April 9th, against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Opening day 2, which promises to be just as exciting as opening day, is also Sony Tape World Champs Keychain Day, as all fans in attendance will receive a brass keychain commemorating the Mets' 1986 World Championship. Opening day 2 also marks the return of Rodney Dangerfield, on hand to show his respect for the world champs, and an exciting schedule of opening day 2 activities. Tickets are available at all Ticketron outlets, at Shea Stadium's advanced ticket window, or by calling 718-507-TIXX for more information.
And Al Pedrique takes a strike from Floyd Bannister. Al batting .278 on the spring from Aragua, Venezuela. Makes his home in one of your favorite towns, Ralph, Carabobo, Venezuela. Quite familiar with
Main Street there is interesting.
Carabobo. I guess it would be Carabobo. C-A-R-A-B-O-B-O. 1-2 to Al Pedrique. Batted .293 at Tidewater last year. Very versatile player, plays 3 infield positions. 85 and 86 season at Tidewater. Little chopper, Guillen will have to hurry. Barehanded, nice play, Ozzie Guillen, 1 out.
Ozzie Guillen, an outstanding defensive shortstop, and there he had to use all his skills to pick up the batter runner, and this is not that easy a play. He knows he can't get the glove on it, transfer the ball to make the play in time, and uses that bare hand to his advantage.
Fine, slick fielding shortstop, Ozzie Guillen, and here's Rick Anderson, the pitcher, and he takes ball 1. 1-0, Chicago. And he cues one off foul, so it's 1-1 to Anderson. Anderson got the start tonight. And we've got a pinch hitter for Anderson. It's not Rick Anderson. Aha! Foiled by the spring training switch. Hitting for Rick Anderson, pops to second, so Mark's out of there. Rick Anderson going 3 innings, giving up 1 run and 1 hit. That run was earned.
Carrion was 6 for 18, 333 before popping up for the out there, having a good spring, and he's one of the interesting young players the Mets have.
Mookie Wilson, a high chopper to Guillen again. That is the 4th chance for Ozzie Guillen as the Mets go in order here in the 3rd inning. 6 in a row retired by Bannister as he's sliding along. We go to the 4th after this word from Busch Beer.
The Albert Brothers on News 9 double sports coverage following the game.
Well, the Mets have a new pitcher. Charlie Corbell is in there. He was in Monday night's game. He was 11-6 at Shreveport last year, 17-4 2 years ago in Class A ball. Picked up from the Giants in the Major League Draft, and if he does not make the ball club, he'll return to San Francisco, something that will not happen to Steve Zabriskie. Here he is. Steve-O?
Funny you should mention that, since I was born about 30 miles south of San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, you will return to San Francisco. I didn't mean that. You will return, but not on a permanent basis, we hope.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Greg Walker will lead it off against Charlie Corbell. Walker struck out looking to end the 1st inning. As the White Sox lead it 1-0, each club with but 1 hit. strike over the outside corner. Rick Anderson pitched well. 1 hit, 1 run in 3 innings. Struck out 3, walked 2, and threw 1 wild pitch that cost him the run. Ripped, but it's going to be foul outside the right field line. And across 2nd Street and into the parking lot of the hotel. There is Gene Shalit of the Today Show, who is self-billed one of the biggest Mets fans around. What a character.
He is that. Gene wearing that T-shirt tonight, showing off that form. He's down here in spring training getting into shape. As
That
you
physique.
can see.
Great physique. He makes me look good.
Gene is quite a Mets fan, I'll tell you.
And Pedrique hauls it in on the run in foul territory, and Walker's retired for the first out here in the 4th inning. And here's Ivan Calderon, who popped out to second his first time up. Ivan, highly touted as perhaps the heir apparent to the left field spot. John Cangelosi, who played a lot of left field last year, and Russ Morman also buying. Strawberry runs this one down in the corner and will hold Calderon to a single. First hit off Corbell, and only the 2nd for Chicago.
And a good play by Darryl Strawberry, those long strides, and a strong throw. Good play by Darryl. Got a good jump on that ball.
Calderon runs well, and had the ball gotten by him, would have been at least a double. Here's Tim Hewlett, who struck out looking back in the 2nd. Calderon at first, a threat to run, 1 out, and strike 1. Calderon goes, and it's flagged down by Corbell, and they get him at second base and turn the double play. Fine play by Charlie Corbell with Calderon running. He still was able to pick up the double play.
And the reason he elected to go ahead and throw it to second was that the ball was hit so sharply that even if you don't get him at second, you're still going to have a shot at Hewlett at first base. Good play by Backman, avoiding the slide, and a good double play and a very alert play by Corbell. You're right, Steve.
After 3.5, still 1-0 Chicago, and we're back after this from Nissan. Wally Backman batting second in the order tonight, leading it off here in the 4th inning against Floyd Bannister. White Sox lead the Mets 1-0. Backman grounded to short in the 1st inning, as Ozzie Guillen has been busy at short for the White Sox tonight. Another ground ball up the middle. This will be taken by second baseman Hill, and he throws over to Walker, 1 away.
Really interesting on that hop, not trying to make something out of nothing, but it gives you an idea of what a second baseman can allow to happen when he's on the right side of the infield. No other infielder could make a hop like that and make a play like that because the hop really played the second baseman. But when you're on the right side of the infield, that allows you the time to make the throw because you have a shorter throw. Can't do it on the left side of the infield.
No. Hernandez rips 1 foul for strike 1. Keith also grounded to short in the 1st inning, and he may have broken his bat.
Floyd Bannister, really the type of pitcher, Steve, that I've always thought that really should have been a better pitcher than he is. Or than he has been. He's 10 years in the major leagues. He only had 7 games in the minor leagues. Signed with Houston, as Ralph said, #1 player in the country off the campus of Arizona State, and then traded to Seattle in '78 for Craig Reynolds. Really good stuff, though.
A drive into right center. Williams runs it down, however, 2 away. Well, Bannister's the kind of guy he's had good numbers most of his career, except in the win-loss column. He doesn't seem to win as many games as you think he should, even though he may have in certain years, other impressive statistics. For some reason, he doesn't seem to get what you would think would be his share of the victories.
Some of those impressive statistics, a lot of innings pitched, a lot of strikeouts. Over 200 in 1982, close to it 1983 and 85. But he's been 10 and 14 the last 2 years. Only 2 years over 500, 16 and 10 in 83 and 14 and 11 in 84 to reinforce your point.
And I'm sure that we're not the only ones wondering why. 1-1 to Carter. Gary with the only New York hit. Again, tight, 2 balls, 1 strike. Gary singled to left in the second inning and then went on down to second when the throw from left fielder Ivan Calderon got by Hill at second base. And Gary shatters the ash.
That bat had to be broken before. That was probably chipped. A lot of times you get those hairline chips in the barrel of the bat because Gary appeared to hit it on the good part of the bat or down toward the end. Now he's checking the new one. Don't check the new one, check the old one. That's the one that's broken. May hit it right off the end of the bat, out in front. Yeah, he hit it off the end of the bat.
And half of the end of the bat went the opposite direction.
There's a little hole that's bored into some of the ends of the bats. Now you can see it right there with Carter, and a lot of times if a ball hits right on the end there, it'll just take that wood. That's what that one did.
And Gary misses the next one. So a 1-2-3 inning for Bannister, who picks up his first strikeout here in the 4th inning. After 4, the pitchers are in control. And the White Sox still lead it 1-0 over New York. Now here's a word from Manufacturers Hanover. Well, Timmy, it appears that your analyzation of the Carter bat situation is right on the money.
They kept the chip.
They got the piece and the bat. And that scooped out end of the bat, which is done really for lighter weight in an effort to get more wood with less ounces.
Those are the only chips you want to think about keeping, too.
Well, there's some chips in Atlantic City and Vegas you might want to hoard.
Yeah, okay.
But I know what you're talking about. Ken Williams leads off the top of the 5th inning. Chicago leading 1-0. Williams walked and stole second his first time up. Hitting .211 on the spring. And he drives one to right. Strawberry loping over, and an easy play, 1 away. Charlie Corbell working in relief of Rick Anderson, who went the first 3 innings. And here's Ron Karkovice, who is expected by manager Jim Fregosi to be the everyday catcher, or at least the almost everyday catcher for the White Sox this season. And before the game, Fregosi telling me that this guy has all the tools. He has power at the plate, and in the last 2 days, he has thrown out, last Tuesday, Mookie Wilson, and yesterday he threw out Vince Coleman in an attempt to steal second. And both guys got up and looked around as if, where'd that ball come from?
Yeah, they have talked about his throwing arm. He has got a cannon.
Takes the ball high and away, and it's 2-1. Karkovice also walked his first time up. And it's 2-2.
Bill Webb, our director, just whispered in our ear that he looks too intelligent to be a catcher.
3-2 now. I am certainly going to defer to you on that response.
Sure, well, I imagine you would. You're not going to take up for me. You're just going to defer to me.
Ball 4. Karkovice walks for the second straight at bat. First walk issued by Corbell, and the third by New York pitching. So Karkovice will be at first with 1 out for Floyd Bannister.
And there's Keith Hernandez talking to Charlie Corbell, and he'll tell him one of 3 things: that he'll take 2 steps in and stop, and Corbell can throw to first, or let him break and just break toward home and then deliver the ball to give him that extra jump, or just throw over there normally.
And Bannister fouls it off. Strike one. And that time, Hernandez was just a straight break to the plate.
And he's talking to Corbell again. And the Mets work on this play, and they work it better than anybody in baseball.
And the reason they work it better than any other team is because of number 17 at first base. There's the throw over.
So now Keith probably told him, throw over one time and then I'll break to the plate, or 2 times and I'll break to the plate.
And a good bunt by Bannister. Pedrique goes to Backman covering first. And the sacrifice moves Karkovice down to second with 2 out.
Yeah, all the strategy is for naught when you bunt like that. Ralph mentioned that Bannister handles the bat very well. And with this bunt, oh, that is a perfect bunt.
You couldn't walk out there and place it much better.
No, you really couldn't. Ball hits toward the line, and Bannister deadens the ball. Pedrique throws him out easily, but the sacrifice successful.
So Bannister back to the dugout, and Ozzie Guillen will be the hitter. Ozzie has grounded out twice. Fouls it off for strike one. Guillen in the last 3 ball games has had 2 3-hit games. After a pretty slow start, he's hit .545 in the last 3. Entered the game hitting .435 overall. One of the few guys on this club that really has a solid job and really isn't in jeopardy. He and Harold Baines, really the 2 guys this club's built around.
Greg Walker at first, their power man.
Right. He's just established himself in the last year. You and Ralph were talking about how thin they are. And Jim Fregosi telling me before the game, we just have to find out who we have in this organization that can play, because Fregosi came over in the middle of last season. So he's really tried to see as many guys as possible. Right back to Corbell. Ian will be an easy out at first, and the inning is over. 1 walk and 1 left here in the 5th for Chicago. After 4 1/2, still 1-0 White Sox. And we're back to St. Pete after this for Busch Beer. Darryl Strawberry is going to lead it off in the bottom of the 5th inning, with Chicago leading the Mets 1-0, and coming back in to call it for you for the next inning and a half. Once again, Tim McCarver.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot. You don't often see games like this in spring training. A 1-0 game, only 3 hits in 4 1/2 innings between the 2 ball clubs. Strawberry takes the ball. The only hit for the Mets, a Gary Carter single. And for the White Sox, Donnie Hill doubled and Ivan Calderon single to right. 1-0 Chicago, 1-1 to Strawberry. Darryl with 27 home runs last year. His high 29, and that's the one thing he's trying to prevent doing this year, and that's pulling out on that breaking ball. And he's, for the most part, done a good job not doing it.
He's been better at it.
Slider grounded to second. Donnie Hill on the high hop. That's 10 in a row retired by Bannister. 1 out.
And you can see Darryl hit that ball with his hands that time because he was making an effort to keep his shoulder in, and he wound up just expending his power and just being able to come through with the hands, even though you could tell he was making a concerted effort to do it.
Kevin McReynolds, the batter. He popped to first his first time up. Rip down the left field line. Calderon will go to third base as McReynolds has a line shot double over third. It's only the second hit for New York, and McReynolds is there with 1 out. Fans, this game is brought to you in part by your 9X Yellow Pages. It's the one you've always had. It's the only one you need.
Kevin McReynolds has only 6 base hits now, but 3 of them have been doubles, and 1 of them has been a triple. So he has 10 total bases with just 6 hits and no home runs.
Howard Johnson fly deep to left center his first time up. Takes ball 1. You mentioned the White Sox, who don't have too many guys who know that they're going to play a particular position, and the Mets have almost every position filled, including almost all the spots on their rosters.
Yeah, even though their cuts were announced today, you can pretty much already tell. Maybe with the exception of one situation. The third catcher may be, who's going to be the second and third catcher.
Maybe Howard Johnson at shortstop a few games.
Right. But basically, you know who the infielders, both starting and reserve, are going to be.
2-0 to Johnson. Grounded towards short. Guillen to first. Just gets Johnson. On the play, McReynolds goes to third, and with 2 out, the batter, Al Pedrique.
That ball not sharply hit, and that's one reason McReynolds could go to third on the play. Had the ball been hit sharply at Guillen, less chance of McReynolds being able to advance to third.
Pedrique grounded to short, as Guillen has fielded 5 chances flawlessly in this ball game. He's fun to watch, isn't he?
He is smooth, as one would expect. And I think he too, like Rafael Santana of the Mets, has a little get you by a step going for him.
Not the strongest of arms. Charges the ball very well. Of course, the great Chicago White Sox shortstop Luis Aparicio, Hall of Famer, held down that steady position for a long time in Chicago's South Side. Center fielder Ken Williams catches up to Pedrique's shot to right center. The Mets failed to score. They did get 1 hit, only their second of the game. They trail 1-0 after 5. Now here's a word from Nynex. 1-0. White Sox lead. Donnie Hill, the first batter, took a strike. Now he takes ball 1-1 to Donnie Hill, who scored the only run of the ball game. Each side with 2 hits. The White Sox with 1 error. Grounded towards short on the high hop, Howard Johnson. A lot of activity around the shortstop area tonight. 1 out here in the 6th, and the batter, Harold Baines.
Well, this is our television sponsor weekend here at spring training, and in the middle of your screen, the gentleman in the red shirt and blue jacket is Tom Ryan, who's the station manager at WOR. Seated next to him in the gray coat, Peter Leone, vice president and general manager, and they, among others from WOR TV, are entertaining many of our TV sponsors this weekend here in St. Petersburg.
Baines holds up in time, 1-0 to Harold. Harold has grounded out a couple of times, once to second, once to first. Fouls it back, 1-1.
Harold Baines with arthroscopic knee surgery on his right knee right after the season in October, and you can see him every once in a while still flexing it after a swing at the plate.
That's why he has logged only 15 at-bats this spring.
Right.
Fouls it back, and of course the much heard about story. He was the #1 pick back in 1977, grew up around the Chesapeake Bay area, and Bill Veeck, the former owner of the White Sox, saw him play when he was 12 years old. Had an eye on him when he was 12 years old. So Bill Veeck did his homework.
That's scouting.
It most certainly is.
But how many players really at that age would any baseball man dare to project as being a prospect? I mean, there are obviously here some who stand out.
Some youngsters peak too early and never improve after that. That's true. And that's why the job of scouting, as Baines fouls one off his foot, still 1-2. That's why scouting is so very difficult. How do you know, if you're scouting a youngster in the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, whether he's peaked or not?
Well, the guys who seem to know that certainly pay big bonuses, and the Mets have been blessed with Joe McIlvaine, among others, who have seemingly had that ability.
Line to Johnson. Howard hardly had to move to make that catch of the line drive, and with 2 out, Greg Walker, the batter.
I can remember a young man that I played Babe Ruth baseball with who everyone projected would be a major league pitcher. He was awesome at that early age, 13, 14 years old, and burned out by the time he didn't even finish high school baseball. Didn't even finish a career in high school. So it's possible to peak way too early.
Well, you do hear a lot of stories, of course, following a major league club from people throughout the country of, you know, legitimate reasons of guys who had an opportunity to play professionally and for some reason or another just didn't cut it. Pedrique back, an easy inning for Charlie Carbell. He's now retired 5 in a row. Real pitcher's battle going on at Al Lang Stadium in St. Petersburg. It's 1-0 Chicago after 5½. We'll be back after this word from Michelob.
Catch the latest sports and all the news immediately following the game.
Bob James on the mound now for the White Sox in relief from Floyd Bannister.
Bob James, last season, a record of 5-4 and a 3.25 ERA in 49 games for Chicago. And other changes for the White Sox as well.
Change for the Mets, too, as Len Dykstra takes strike 1.
Steve Lyons goes into right field, and Julio Cruz goes in at second base. Fred Manrique goes in at shortstop, and Pat Keedy is at first base.
You know, we were talking earlier about the Dykstra-Wilson situation. Wilson out last year, that freak play that broke his glasses, almost caused serious injury to his eyes. Fortunately, he's all right, and he didn't start the season with the Mets. Dykstra won the job, but Dykstra only 2 for 20 this spring. Now, if he continues at that pace, and Wilson continues at his pace, what does Davey Johnson do on opening day? Do you start Wilson or Dykstra?
Well, you may be back to a straight platoon situation. Davey may play Mookie against left-handers and Dykstra only against right-handers and see how that goes for a while.
Slider grounded up the middle. Donnie Hill quickly throws out Dykstra, 1 out. So Lynn now only 2 for 21 this spring. I said Donnie Hill. That's Julio Cruz now at second base. As is the custom here in spring training, a lot of switches in the middle of the game. Pat Keedy, the first baseman. Steve Lyons, the former Boston Red Sox, in right field to replace Harold Baines. Mookie Wilson takes a strike from Bob James. Mookie 0 for 2 on the night. 1-0 Chicago. Slider foul back. 0-2.
Well, if you happen to be keeping score at home, and I would have to ask you why in the world you would want to.
Because you'd go through the same problems that we have.
That's right. Who would want to have to do this if they didn't have to? Cruz will bat first, Lyons second, Keedy third, James fourth, and Manrique ninth. Got that? Brother. And this is only the first changes of the evening.
And back at you Saturday afternoon from Tampa. Cincinnati Reds and Pete Rose will play the Mets. Game time 1:05. Fly ball left field. Calderon playing Wilson perfectly, and he makes the catch. 2 out. And then another game also on Sunday at 1:05. The Cincinnati Reds again, so you have a chance to see Pete Rose and the Reds. They're fine ball club, fine young ball club. Boy, do they have some good young talent. So plan on spending your weekend right here on WOR, at least your weekend days. Backman has grounded out a couple of times. Wally 0 for 2. Ball 1. Right field for Backman, only the third of the ball game for the Mets. So Backman, the 2-out runner at first. Between innings, Bill Webb looking at Bob James warming up, said a Greg Luzinski look-alike, and thought that was right on.
James a little taller than the Bull, but there's a lot of facial resemblance, especially when the Bull went to the facial hair later in his career.
Foul ball. Hernandez grounds one sharply by the diving Keedy, and it's just foul.
Keith thought it was fair. Threw up his arms in frustration, turned around, took a look at Dan Morrison, the first base umpire. Keith flailing away on that down and in pitch. Keedy not very far off the line, as he was, of course, holding Backman. The ball goes screaming by him, and baby, that was close.
0-1 to Hernandez. Curveball is inside, 1-1. James came to the White Sox from the Montreal Expos in exchange for infielder Vance Law back in 1984. Had 32 saves for the Sox in 1985 as Backman scampers back. 1-1 on Hernandez.
You and Ralph were talking about the White Sox uniforms and the fact that they don't have White Sox. They actually have Red Sox. The White Sox actually are unveiling brand new uniforms this season, more traditional.
Thank goodness. Popped up in foul territory. Tim Hewlett in. Karkovice, the catcher, calls off Hewlett to make the catch. No runs, a hit, one left in the sixth. Ralph joins Steve after this word from Bud Light.
Roger McDowell, the new pitcher for New York, the third of the ninth. Last year, Roger was 14-9 with 22 saves to lead the Mets and a 3.02 ERA. He's pitching in relief of Charlie Corbell, who went 3 innings and gave up 1 hit, did not strike out a batter, and walked 1. And the Mets have other changes now with Tim Tuffle in at third for Pedrique. Dykstra stays in the game at center, and Mookie Wilson moves to left with Kevin McReynolds coming out and coming back in, a man who used to be in left all the time, Ralph Kiner.
Left out. And the leadoff batter for the White Sox, Ivan Calderon. Calderon 1 for 2 tonight, and Roger McDowell coming in with a record of no wins, no losses, 2 saves. This is his 5th ball game. He has not given up an earned run in 5 innings of work. So McDowell to Calderon, Hewlett, and then Williams as we go to the top of the 7th inning. Fast-moving ball game. White Sox with a run back in the first, leading 1-0. And Calderon takes the first pitch for ball 1. That ball fouled off. 1 ball, 1 strike. Paid crowd here tonight, 6,195. Another capacity crowd. Good crowd.
Pardon me, Rob. Lee Mazzilli is also in the game at first base, replacing Keith Hernandez.
1-1 delivery right on the outside corner. McDowell picking up a strike with the fastball. It's 1-2. Calderon hit .303 in 13 ball games for the White Sox. And he's had 10 hits this spring and 32 times up. And there's that sinking fastball. Top foul. The count stays at 1 ball and 2 strikes. After a very cloudy morning, this has turned out to be quite a day here. Sun breaking through about noontime, and here tonight a very pleasant evening. Check swing foul ball off to the right side. The count remains at 1-2.
And again, for those of you keeping score, and we would wonder why, Mets batting order will be Roger McDowell batting 3rd. Lee Mazzilli will bat 6th in McReynolds' spot, and Tim Tuffle will bat 8th in the order in Al Pedrique's spot.
Another foul ball, this one to the left side. Calderon keeping the count at 1 ball and 2 strikes. Sox playing in Comiskey Park. Ball club once owned by Charlie Comiskey, who at one time was a major league player. And this ball again fouled off. Comiskey was the owner of the ball club back in 1919 when the infamous White Sox were called the Black Sox. They had 8 men who conspired to throw the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. They were later on exonerated by a court, but the Commissioner of Baseball, Judge Landis, exiled the 8 men from baseball.
He had his own court.
He ruled with a heavy hand. 3-2 the count. One of the players that was exiled, one of the greatest players that ever played, Shoeless Joe Jackson. This ball grounded foul again, so the count remains at 3-2. Shoeless Joe, although not officially acclaimed as a rookie, although he did qualify under the present-day rules, batted .400 and did not win the batting title.
They didn't have a Rookie of the Year honor, obviously.
They didn't until, well, the first Rookie of the Year, of course, was 1947, and that was Jackie Robinson. That's the first time they had that award. Tough chance at third base for Tuffle, and he does not handle it. So Calderon ends up at first base, and that should go, I would believe, as a base hit.
I would think so. It's a tough chance. You can see Tuffle trying to get a bead on the hop, and it comes up on him rather nastily at the last second. Calderon with an outstanding at bat. He had fouled off some pretty good pitches, and in fact a couple of times had fouled off pitches accidentally that probably would have been balls, but he hung in there and wound up with his second hit of the night.
White Sox leading 1-0. And the batter will be Tom Hewlett. Hewlett playing at third base. Runner at first, no one out. We're in the top of the 7th inning. The White Sox leading 1-0.
That's only the third base hit for Chicago.
And the bunt out in front of home plate and bouncing into foul territory. So the sacrifice attempt goes as a foul ball, and the runner Calderon back to first.
That ball almost hit Hewlett's helmet. His batting helmet came off as he broke down for first, and it bounced on the line, and the ball kicked right past it into foul territory. That would have been interesting if the ball had landed in his helmet in fair territory.
It would have been in play.
Right. Whoever made the play, Carter or McDowell, would have had to reach into the helmet and get the ball. Remember the play last year? I think it was last year, where the pitcher couldn't get the ball out of his glove, so he threw his glove to first.
Pitcher for the San Francisco Giants. First time I ever saw that play. Got stuck in the webbing of the glove.
Was it Mike?
It was Mulholland.
Oh, that's right. He tried to get it out, so he just threw his glove with the ball in it to first. The first baseman caught it, and the runner was out.
And Bob Brenly was at first base, normally a catcher. He said they worked in that play in Little League ball. What kind of a coach is that? Throw over to first base.
Well, I don't know about the coach, but it must have been a pretty bad Little League team.
And again, the bunt attempt, and it's fouled back out of play. Tim Fregosi, who was known as a hitting shortstop, bunting in this situation in spring training in the 7th. Now, I can understand it in the regular season.
You would think, especially since Hewlett is one of those guys that you would want to get a look at as much as possible, being a young player, and with the White Sox leading and it being spring training, they just go ahead and have him hit away, but he's not.
Well, the 2 strikeout, and he swings away, which is a normal procedure, and it's a fly ball to right. Strawberry puts it away, and Calderon goes back to first. That will bring up the center fielder, Ken Williams. Williams in this ball game has walked, and he has flied out to right.
Fregosi calls Williams the best athlete on the team by far. He has outstanding physical ability, runs extremely well. He has good size, although he's not huge by any measure. He's not diminutive. Does not have a lot of power, but may, as he grows and progresses, hit more home runs.
And a good base runner on the base as a pinch runner. Cangelosi has taken over as the pinch runner for Calderon, and we'd have to believe he'll be in a stolen base situation. Check swing, ground ball to short. Tough play at shortstop. And Johnson does a good job fielding the ball and getting it over to second base for the forced play.
Williams with a little excuse me swing. Sometimes you hit the ball with authority when you stop that swing, and the only play Johnson could make was to go to second. Williams runs very well. It would have been a very tough play, running as hard as Johnson was toward third, for him to get the runner Williams at first base, and he did a good job to get the runner Cangelosi at second, who also has good speed.
And now Williams draws a throw. McDowell with a good move at first. He is quick. Got those very quick feet. And again, he throws over to first base. Silly has to come off the bag to make the catch and tag. White Sox leading 1-0. 2 men out, top of the 7th inning. And that pitch fouled away, strike one. Karkovice, the batter. Ron in this ballgame has been on twice, both on walks. And a little lob toss to first base, and again, Williams back. Runner goes, the pitch is taken, the throw by Carter in time. Tag is made. Good play by Carter on the throw. And in the inning, no runs, 1 hit, no one left on base. The score at the end of 6.5 innings, the White Sox won, the Mets nothing. Now here's a word from Pepsi-Cola.
Say, fans, the Mets' first home weekend series of the '87 season is Snapper Calendar Weekend. All fans attending the Mets Atlanta Braves game on Saturday and Sunday, April 11th and 12th, will receive a full-color '87 team calendar featuring memorable moments of the Mets' '86 championship season. This commemorative calendar also includes a full-color pull-out team poster of the 1986 World Champion Mets, all courtesy of Snapper Lawn and Garden Equipment. Tickets are available at all Ticketron outlets, at Shea Stadium's advanced ticket window, or by calling 718-507-TIXX for more information. Don't forget, it's Snapper Calendar Weekend, Saturday and Sunday, April 11th and 12th against Atlanta at Shea.
And fans, if you want to see the 1987 Mets at Shea anytime this season, take some good advice and buy your tickets in advance. This season promises to be the best ever, so make your plans now in order to get the best seats available. Tickets for all Mets home games are now on sale at all Ticketron outlets. Shea Stadium's advanced ticket window by mail or call 718-507-TIXX for more information. Let's do it again at Shea this season and catch all the action and excitement of your world champion Mets. It's baseball like it ought to be. Don't forget to get your tickets now.
Well, Tim was talking earlier about how much better Gary Carter is throwing this spring, and you can see that even though Ken Williams runs extremely well, it looked like he did stumble a little bit about a third of the way down, but Carter just gunned him right out of there with a very strong throw and a quick release.
So a 1-0 ball game. The Mets batting in the 7th, and Gary Carter the leadoff. Gary with a base hit and 2 official at-bats. Bob James, that pitch right in there. I wonder if there's anything in that.
I was just going to say that, Ralph. Bob James and Gary Carter were teammates in Montreal. James was one of those who is critical of Carter, the way in which Carter not necessarily lives his life away from baseball, but conducts himself on the field. And maybe there's something in their personal relationship that we don't know about that precipitated that breezer.
James, hard-throwing right-hander, and a fellow who grew up in California, same area as Gary Carter, was a catcher in his early days. Well, you have to remember that those memories have good and bad remembrances.
Well, Carter just hit himself. Gary fouling one off, and it came right back up and hit him in the face. Might have caught his nose or his cheek and then tipped his hat back a little bit.
So the count 2-1.
But catchers are used to being hit with pitches.
Mets trailing by 1 as they bat here in the 7th inning. And a ground ball down to third base. Hewlett has it, and throw to first is taken there by Pat Keating. So Carter grounds out, now 1 for 3. And that is Cochran that has gone into third base, a former Met. Dave Cochran.
Also, John Cangelosi stays in the game for Chicago, replacing Ivan Calderon in left field.
That'll bring up Darryl Strawberry. Darryl has grounded out to the second baseman his 2 times up. And he gets hit by a breaking ball. Curveball hitting Darryl Strawberry, and Darryl's had a tough spring. That is the 3rd time he has been hit by a pitch.
This one did not appear to be intentional, and Darryl probably would have much preferred to get out of the way and get his hack sudden up there. He's seen so many left-handers this spring. He finally gets a right-handed fastball pitcher. So what happens? He gets a breaking ball on the foot. That's when you know you're going bad.
You can get 1 foot up, but it's hard to get 2. Well, the Mets now with a time run at first and 1 away, and the batter is Kevin McReynolds. And he has been replaced in the batting order. And it's Lee Mazzilli who is batting.
Naz having an outstanding spring, hitting .381. Tied with Howard Johnson for the club lead with 2 homers, and he has 6 RBIs.
Strawberry with good speed, the runner at first base, and the first pitch for ball 1. James came into this game with a record of 0-2 this spring and an earned run average of 9.95. So he has not had a good spring. And Mazzilli going for the pump. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Lee smiling a little bit. He had what you might call a good cut.
Hitting .381 this spring with an on-base percentage of .417. And a throw to first base, and Strawberry back safely. Only 6 hits in the ball game, both sides with 3. Again, a throw to first.
Darryl may be running here as Mazzilli had a chance for a big hack. Darryl has 1 stolen base so far this spring.
There goes Strawberry, a good jump. The throw is in time, but the tag is not. Good throw by Karkovice, but Darryl makes it.
Well, Darryl doing something that neither Mookie Wilson or Vince Coleman were able to do this week, and that is steal a base against Ron Karkovice. Of course, it helps with regard to who the pitcher is, but Darryl looked to be in there. The tag was put on him a little too high by Fred Manrique, the shortstop, who takes the throw. It's very close.
So now the Mets with a time run at second base and 1 man out. And Strawberry dancing around at second. And James steps off the pitching rubber. With a 3-game winning streak and a breaking ball by James for a ball. Lee Mazzilli back for the New York Mets. And the breaking ball again. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Batter Howard Johnson. Mazzilli swings and hits it to center field. Strawberry running with a pitch all the way to third, but now back towards second as the catch is made by Ken Williams in center. Phil Strawberry running with a pitch back to second base.
Well, Mazzelli puts a charge in another one, and Lee not getting any help from the wind tonight as that flag is hanging limply on right center field. Williams shows outstanding instincts as well as good running speed, as he got a great break on that ball and wound up almost being there waiting for it when it came down. Strawberry breaking and picks up the third base coach Sam Perlazzo right away, and then picks up the play and has plenty of time to get back.
So Strawberry's still at second, but with 2 men out, and the batter's Howard Johnson. Howard batting from the left-hand side for the first time, and he takes for ball 1.
Speaking of base coaches, Eddie Brinkman, the first base coach of Chicago, recovering from a quadruple bypass heart surgery, and so Art Kushner is the first base coach for now, probably most of the early part of the season for the White Sox.
And Johnson takes again, the count 2-0. Howard grounded out to the shortstop and flied out to center field in his 2 appearances against Floyd Bannister, the starting pitcher, who went the first 4 innings. And the fastball for ball 3.
James has been working the left-handed hitters very tightly. With both his slider and his fastball, he has been coming in, and he's faced 3 consecutive left-handed hitters.
James was a catcher in high school. And he misses with a fastball for ball 4. So the Mets now on the walk to Johnson with runners at first and second.
And that's the first walk either White Sox pitcher has yielded tonight.
And it brings up Tim Teufel. Teufel batting for the first time in the game.
Teufel hitting .278 this spring. He's 5 for 18 with a double, no homers, and 1 RBI.
And a ground ball to third. On through the legs of the third baseman Cochran. Coming around from second to score is Strawberry, and it's a tie ball game at 1.
Dave Cochran was converted to third base by the New York Mets before he was traded away and had struggled at the position. He just came up way too early, didn't keep the tailgate down. And what would have been a routine inning-ending ground ball plates the tying run.
So Teufel at first base behind Howard Johnson, who moved to second on the air. And Cochran now looks at Lenny Dykstra at the plate. Dykstra takes, and it's ball 1. Dykstra was a pinch hitter in the 6th inning and grounded out, stayed in the ball game. And James picks up a strike with a fastball. 1 ball, 1 strike. Dykstra having a tough spring. 2 hits and 21 at-bats. Fastball and popped up. Cochran at third base will try it. And he makes the catch. In the inning, the Mets get another run to tie it without the benefit of a base hit. Batter hit by a pitch ball and a walk in the air, and 2 men left on. The score at the end of 7, the Mets won, and the White Sox won. Now here's a word from Nissan. Weiss will be the leadoff batter for the White Sox here in the 8th inning. Tie ball game now at 1. Karkovice left at home plate when Ken Williams was thrown out attempting to steal in the 7th inning. Karkovice has walked in his 2 official appearances, and he takes the first pitch by Roger McDowell for ball 1. sides with 3 hits, and the ball game tied at 1. And a ground ball to the shortstop, Howard Johnson. The throw to first base to Mazzilli, who comes up with it, and 1 away. That'll bring up Fred Manrique, the shortstop.
Manrique this spring hitting .273. He's had 6 hits and 22 times up. He has not driven in a run, but he has stolen a couple of bases, formerly with the St. Louis Cardinals.
And the good sinker chopped out to third base. Tuffle takes the chopper, and it's throw to Mazzilli for the out. So 2 men away here in the top of the 8th inning. Roger McDowell came in the ball game in the 7th inning. Now is working his 2nd inning. And his batter will be Julio Cruz, who has moved into the second base position.
Julio Cruz this offseason had the 3rd operation on his right big toe. Now, how many guys have you heard of that have had 3 operations on the same toe? He's had a turf toe problem from playing on artificial turf and has had to have it operated on now 3 times.
And he attempts to run his way on and misses. And strike 2. Well, those things are painful.
But you'd think it would be fixed a little more easily than having to have 3 operations.
And the breaking ball for a ball, 1 ball, 2 strikes. New catcher in the ball game for the Mets, John Gibbons, has taken over for Gary Carter. And again, the breaking ball, and this one fouled back into the stands. Cruz. One of many Cruzes in baseball. A very common Spanish name. Ground ball is short. Howard Johnson. Silly off the bag, and he makes the tag. So a 1-2-3 inning for Roger McDowell. And the score at the end of 7 1/2 innings. The White Sox won. New York Mets won. Now here's a word from the Bell Atlantic Yellow Pages. New battery for the White Sox. Former familiar face of the Mets, Ed Glenn, is now pitching for Chicago, and he'll be working to Randy Gomez as his catcher. Ed Glenn at one time sold hot dogs at Shea Stadium from Flushing, New York.
Born right in Flushing. Last year he pitched for Tidewater, where he was 3-4 with a 2.56 ERA in 45 games for the Tides. He will bat in the 8th position in the batting order, and Gomez will bat 4th.
And as they make the battery change, we'll switch it up here and go to a high charge battery. Steve Zabriskie.
Thank you, Ralph. I'll get my batteries charged a little today, as a matter of fact. Davey Johnson in the dugout. Bud Harrelson to his right, and to his left, John Cumberland, I think. Looks like Cumby, one of the Mets minor league instructors.
Former Met player.
Mookie Wilson's going to lead it off here in the bottom of the 8th inning in a 1-1 tie. Bob James pitched 2 innings, gave up an unearned run, only 1 hit, did not strike out a batter, and walked 1. So Glenn becomes the 3rd Chicago pitcher of the night. And Mookie hits the first pitch high and deep to left center, and it is gone. The Mets lead 2-1 as Mookie Wilson takes Ed Glenn deep. Mookie's first home run and 4th RBI of the year in spring training. And what a spring he's having, Ralph.
Well, Mookie's off to a great spring. 10 for 26 before this base hit. He's now 11 for 30. And there's no doubt about it. Ed Glenn A former vendor at Shea Stadium serves that one up on his first pitch, and the Mets lead 2-1.
And Wally Backman takes the strike. Mookie getting some high fives. Backman 1 for 3. Single to right his last time up after grounding out in his first 2 at-bats. Big cut by Backman, but it's strike 2. That was Mookie Wilson's 11th hit of the spring, and that leads the New York Mets ball club so far.
And the Mets' 9th home run of the season. And they are playing in their 13th ball game.
One ball, 2 strikes to Wally Backman, batting with nobody on and nobody out, and a run in on Mookie Wilson's home run. Roger McDowell is the scheduled hitter, but Ed Hearn is out on deck to pinch hit for him. Check swing, ball 2, 2-2. Wally, leading the club in runs scored, has scored 7 this spring. The Mets have not had a problem scoring runs. Well hit to left. Cangelosi going back and can't get it. Backman rounding second. He's going to try for third. The relay gets away, and Backman is safe easily at third as it popped off the glove of the second baseman, Julio Cruz. Backman batting right-handed, put a charge in this one.
And he hits that fastball hard to left field. Cangelosi back and unable to get it, although he did turn the wrong way. And Backman on his way to third base, and the relay bobbled by the shortstop Fred Manrique, and the Mets now have a runner at third with no one out as they lead 2-1. We're in the bottom half of the 8th inning.
And Ed Hearn batting for Roger McDowell, the infield in all the way around in a 1-run ball game, and a check swing up the middle taken by Cruz, who will throw out Hearn, and no chance for Backman to come home on the play, so he remains at third now with 1 out. And the batter will be John Gibbons, who came in for Carter defensively in the top half of the inning.
Gibbons hitting .231 this spring. 3 hits and 13 times up. All of his base hits have been singles, and again the infield is in.
2-1 New York on Mookie Wilson's home run here in the bottom of the 8th inning. Backman followed with a triple, and he's at third with 1 out. And Gibbons takes inside, ball 1. John and Ed Hearn, along with Barry Lyons, all battling for those 2 catching spots behind Carter. So somebody's going to be the odd man out.
And also you might toss in Clint Hurdle.
That's true, because if they were to only keep one other catcher, that would certainly enhance Hurdle's spot of making the club. But I have to think that Clint's going to be in Tidewater as insurance for Davy Johnson. Fouled back, and the count 2 balls, 1 strike. Glenn has been greeted rather rudely here. Mookie Wilson hammering the first pitch over the left center field wall, and then Backman with a line drive over the head of the left fielder Cangelosi for a triple.
Glenn played for the Mets briefly back in '79 and '80. Had a record of 4-7.
Ripped for a base hit to left. Backman scores easily from third. Cangelosi runs it down and holds John Gibbons to a single, but it's an RBI single, and the Mets now lead 3-1, and still only 1 out here in the 8th inning.
Well, this ball hit very hard, and a good play on it by Cangelosi and left to hold it to a single. Cangelosi, who can run about as well as anyone, goes over and cuts it off and gets it back in. So a run scores. The Mets now with 2 runs in. And the batter's Darryl Strawberry.
So Darryl getting another chance against a left-handed pitcher, and he has certainly seen his share in spring training. Fouled off for strike 1. Strawberry, hit by a pitch his last time up, has grounded to second in his other 2 at-bats, so officially 0 for 2 with a stolen base and a run scored. Just outside, 1-1. Well, if Darryl were to double here, the Mets would have hit Glenn for the cycle. They've had a home run, a triple, and a single so far in the inning.
And for some reason, the first baseman's holding Gibbons on at first base, not playing off the bag.
And Darryl again to second. They try to turn 2 and do. Very quickly gotten rid of by Julio Cruz, and Manrique completing the play to Pat Keedy for the inning-ending double play. But New York, with 2 runs here in the 8th inning, takes the lead. And we will go to the 9th here in St. Pete, with the Mets leading Chicago 3-1 after this for Oldsmobile.
Jesse Orosco, the new pitcher for the Mets. Jesse with a record of 2-0 this spring, appearing in his 6th ball game. Has an earned run average of 5.14. He's worked 7 innings, given up 4 earned runs, walking 3 and striking out 2. And he has yet to pick up a save, but right here he can pick up a save for the Mets as they go to the 9th, leading 3-1.
And Roger McDowell, who pitched 2 innings and gave up just 1 hit, no runs, did not strike out or walk a batter, stands to be the winning pitcher if the Mets hold on. Roger already has 2 saves this spring. Steve Lyons, Pat Keedy, and Randy Gomez, the 3 scheduled hitters for the White Sox against Orosco here in the 9th, with New York leading it 3-1. 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. A home run by Mookie Wilson, a triple by Wally Backman, and an RBI single by John Gibbons, accounting for the 2 Met runs to break the 1-1 tie. Check swing foul by Lyons out of play for strike 1. Lyons is hitting .500 this spring, 7 for 14 with a home run and 4 RBIs.
And he'll be known as a trivia question the rest of his life.
Yes, who was he traded for from the Chicago White Sox? Someone we all know very well.
Who lives in Greenwich, Connecticut, Tom Seaver.
Now, of course, with Boston, where Lyons was. Lyons bunting for a base hit, does not get it as Gibbons comes out and throws him out, 1 away. Some of the sponsors who are here, as Pat Keedy will be the hitter for the WOR TV Sponsors Weekend. From Nissan, Larry Williams and Jim Duffy. From NYNEX, Bill Buckhan and Beth Hefferman. From Oldsmobile, Ephraim Rosen, Mike Moore, Gene Alden, Jack Grassi, Jack McDonough. From RC Cola, Ron Corin and Jesse Painter. Swing and a miss and a good fastball. Orosco this spring has had outstanding velocities. Sort of answered some questions, Ralph, that some people had about Jesse over the last year and a half or so.
Of course, Jesse picking up the final out in 2 very important games for the Mets. The 6th game of the playoffs against Houston and the 7th game of the World Series against the Red Sox, and both of them were on strikeouts. Final outs of the playoff games and also the World Series.
Another good fastball. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
You ever see a fellow throw a glove as high as he did when he threw that glove in the World Series?
Did it ever come down?
I don't know if it did. I don't think he ever came down.
Strike 3 on a 3 outstanding fastballs to Pat Keedy.
This one is breezed right on by Keedy. 3 pitches, and that's it.
So 2 out, nobody on in the 9th for Randy Gomez, who will bat for the first time. Gomez this spring hitting .375. He's 3 for 8 with 2 RBIs. Other sponsors who are here, Ed D'Amico and Peter Spina from Lincoln Mercury. Base hit to left by the hot-hitting Randy Gomez keeps the White Sox hopes alive with 2 out in the 9th inning. That'll bring up the pitchers. No, John Cangelosi it is. Who will get a chance to bat for the first time. Cangelosi inserted in the game as a pinch runner for Tim Hewlett. And Cangelosi, along with Calderon, fighting for that left field spot. Cangelosi hitting .308, no homers and 2 RBIs this spring. Low and away, ball 1. Some of the other sponsors who are here this weekend for Ford: Jim Gallagher, George Myers, Ray Novelli, and Steve Lafosky. For American Express, Carolyn Bowles and Lisa Copps. And from Burger King, Mike Wilson. A strike on the outside corner, and it's 1-1.
3 of those unlucky guys will catch you tomorrow in the annual golf outing.
That's right. They'll have to suffer with me in their foursome. But I'll tell you something. As bad a day as Tim McCarver had today, locking his keys and his coat and all his stuff for tonight in his car, and having a problem getting to the park, and having to go on without a jacket at all. He's even going to have a tougher day tomorrow because Bill Webb is in his foursome.
Today is a picnic compared to that.
Ripped one hopper to the second baseman Backman, who goes to Johnson, and the ball game is over. The New York Mets, with 2 runs in the 8th inning, break a 1-1 tie and win their 8th ball game of the spring. They are now 8-5. The White Sox falling to 5-9. Jesse Orosco with his first save, and Roger McDowell with his first win. The Mets winning at 3-1. Ralph and I'll be right back to wrap it up for you, so stay with us. We're back after this for your Ford dealer.
Well, the Mets, after trailing by a score of 1-0 through 6 innings, scored an interim run in the 7th inning to tie the ball game, and then won it by a score of 3-1. Good pitching all the way around, as Bannister pitched well for the White Sox, and for the New York Mets, the starting pitcher for the Mets also pitching a very good ball game, and that was Rick Anderson, and then good pitching for the Mets all the way down the line.
And it was good to see Charlie Corbell come out and have a good outing, Ralph, because he has been rocked around a little bit this spring. But basically, the thing that did it for the Mets was Mookie Wilson's home run, even though Backman did follow with a triple, and then John Gibbons drove him in for an insurance run. And Tim and I were talking on the broadcast about the interesting situation that may arise because Len Dykstra's not having a good spring and Mookie Wilson's having a great spring. Perhaps we will see a straight platoon in center field to open the season. Of course, we got a little spring training left to see what happens in that regard.
Well, I think that Mookie will certainly find his way into the lineup. There's no doubt about that, and especially the way Davey Johnson manages his ball club. He likes to get everybody in, and Mookie will be playing somewhere in the outfield. He also will be pinch hitting and being around. So Mookie having that good spring. We'll be back with more of the wrap-up in just a moment, right after this message from Bud Light. Well, the Mets won it by a score of 3-1. For the Mets, their 4th straight victory, and they now have a record of 8-5 for the spring. Capacity crowd of 6,195. The game-winning RBI by Mookie Wilson, a home run in the 8th inning that put the Mets up by a score of 2-1. Winning pitcher in the ball game was McDowell, his first win of the year. Orosco got his first save as he pitched the 9th inning, and the Mets winning once again the final score. The Mets 3 and the White Sox 1.
All right, Ralph, we want to remind you that New York Mets baseball has been brought to you tonight by Bud Light, the light beer with a first name and taste. Everything else is just a light. By Manufacturers Hanover, the financial source worldwide. By Nissan, who invites you to test drive the Go Anywhere Pathfinder at your Nissan dealer now. By the Oppenheimer Mutual Funds, we take the frustration out of investing. By your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Ford dealer. By the New Jersey Bell Yellow Pages. And by your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Lincoln Mercury dealer. Guests on the program receive a Master Mechanic 7 1/4-inch circular saw, belt sander, variable speed reversing drill, and a jigsaw exclusively from True Value hardware stores. And an Emerson 19-inch diagonal color television with auto color control system.
The executive producer of Mets Baseball 87 is Rick Miner. Tonight's game produced and directed by Bill Webb. Be with us again on Saturday afternoon when the Mets take on the Cincinnati Reds live from Tampa, beginning at 1 o'clock Saturday right here on WOR-TV. Mets Baseball 87 is a production of Channel 9 Sports. The announcers on the preceding telecast were approved and contracted for by Sterling Doubleday Enterprise, LP. For Ralph Kiner and Tim McCarver, this is Steve Zabriskie saying so long from St. Petersburg, Florida.